The Martians. Chapter 23. Rotating the Hermes, slowing it with Orion's thrusters, and getting it to fall into an appropriate altitude and velocity was tedious and difficult, but with Alex, Beth, Mindy, Anna and Rick working together it went off without a glitch. The launch of the MAV would not take place on this orbit, but the long elliptical orbit was much tighter now and a second launch window appeared approximately 45 minutes later. Most of this time Mark was screaming in pain, still waiting for the law tab to kick in, and wishing he had more. Both Dana and Chris admonished him to not move, and not take anything else as they had no idea how much he had consumed already and couldn't access his injuries until he was at Hermes. Dana and Chris tried to talk to him throughout, but it soon became clear he had no interest in talking to Dana, and with Chris had little to say. Ultimately Houston, having heard all this, opened a private channel and put both Mark's parents, a ground crew physician, Irene, several folks that knew him from mission control and, eventually, at Irene's suggestion, even KK on the line. The last seemed to work the best as Watney did not want to sound weak to his biggest fan. KK had no idea what to say, and although the channel was private, she was sitting beside Mitch and in front of Kapoor and Sanders. It didn't really matter what she said according to the physician, she just needed to keep Watney awake so that he did not go into shock and potentially die. Mitch just told her to keep talking and whenever she seemed to be winding down would wave his hands to tell her to keep going. "Hey Mark, it's me, KK. I wanted to, well everyone down here is working really hard, it's amazing to watch it all coming together and, well, you got this. You totally got this. Mars sucks and you're leaving it in a few minutes. Hey. Did you know Earth and Mars are getting closer so your trip home is only going to be 5 months or so? That must be great after all the time you've been away. Don't forget, you owe me a trip around Kennedy Space Center. Dad says we're going to have a Chicago deep dish when you get back, but Mom says they don't have those in Florida. We'll have pizza anyway. So yeah. Dad wants me to start looking at colleges, but I'm only a sophomore, well, I will be a junior in a couple of months. I could graduate early but Mom says I need to stay through my senior year, live a high school life she says, go to the prom, stuff like that. I'm thinking about college on the West Coast. I've never really been outside Hawaii, other than to Houston, and I love it there, but I think I want to see something else for a while. What do you think? I know I won't hear your answer for a few minutes, but keep that in mind, I really could use your advice. Occasionally Mark would say something back and seemed more relaxed, at least his biometric readouts were normalizing, although still elevated. It was clear to all that were monitoring Watney's biometrics that his goth teen protege was doing more to keep him calm than anything else had, so she was asked to continue. Being out of things to talk about, she began babbling about school friends, music she was listening to and movies she liked. While all this was going on, a redshift tech noticed an intermittent signal on one of the MAV fuel cells. It appeared to be a mechanical glitch, and no NASA launch had ever occurred without something in their vast and complex systems giving a false reading. It was dutifully reported to Mission Control and relayed to Martinez on the Hermes. "Commander, one of the sensors on fuel cell 4 of the MAV is showing it is both full and empty," Rick said. "What is bad sensor?" Mindy asked. "Probably. Ship weight shows full, the other 3 sensors show full. This one does too, but it flashes off to show empty too. Probably a bad connection but. Mindy asked. "Well, if it is empty, he might not get to us and I would have to use the landing thrusters to drop him back down to God knows where. Best guess. It's full. Protocol says we wait and check, but we don't have anyone there that can check. Recommendation?" Mindy asked. "Launch. But we may have to do an EVA to fix the Orion, top her off from our engines and food stores, and pilot it back down until it can make enough fuel to launch again. I don't think that will be the case, but, well, you're the launch command. Your call. I say go. Go. Mark trusts you, Major, so do I," Mindy said as a new ulcer developed in her gut. "Oh yeah, good to meet you by the way, Commander. They made me a colonel last time on Earth," Rick grinned, "but please, call me Rick." "Good to meet you too, Colonel." Rick, sorry, I'm just about at my wit's end." "I get that, we'll talk more after we get our boy back," Rick replied. After KK spoke for about 30 minutes, Mitch looked at his watch, then held up 10 fingers and every second took one down. KK figured out why on about the 8th finger. "Okay dude, looks like you're about to lift off. You got this, just listen to me, you got this, we're going to bring you home Mark, you got this." KK talked about the liftoff, how the Cubs looked this year. Mark had turned his pen pal into a fan many months before, and anything else that came to mind, including her new science teacher and friends from school she wanted him to meet. At the appropriate time, Houston finally got the signal that the MAV had successfully launched, and KK heard Mark scream in agony as the G-forces put several Earth gravities of weight on his injury. Startled and feeling more angst than ever in her young emo life, KK fell silent. Time seemed to stand still after the scream for a couple of minutes. The telemetry looked good as it came in and Watney's biometrics became off the chart again, but showed he was alive, if in agony. The fuel cell read normally as its contents were consumed and it was written off as a glitch. The MAV speed and trajectory never varied from expectations. "KK, you want to try again?" "Irene. He should be breaking gravity about now." "What do I say?" "It doesn't really matter. He will be at dock in about 20 minutes. Just give him something to think about and keep him talking," the flight director replied, then returned to his work of coordinating, or listening to the coordination, of the launch and recovery. "So, yeah Mark, that was the worst of it. You should be out of gravity by the time you hear this. Sounds like you're hurting pretty bad, but you're going to be okay. Dr. Dana and Beck will take good care of you. Hey. You were on the planet all by yourself, so you really are the king, right? Can I be a princess or something? Mom says we are going to Orlando when you get back because we're going to be in Florida anyway. I think all that is silly, but it might have been fun when I was a little kid, I don't know. It would be neat to tell those bitches I'm already a princess when." "KK." Her mother admonished. "Oh, sorry, Mom doesn't like me to say bish." "It's better than the other word though," KK said. KK kept talking with no response from Mark for several minutes, of course given the signal distance that was to be expected. Houston heard some cross-talk between Hermes and Watney, but Mark's responses were limited. Finally, Houston got the message it had waited for. "Houston, Hermes XO Park, be advised MAV has docked. 3 green lights, Beck and Lewis retrieving Watney now. Will advise as to injuries when available." Moments later, Mindy sent the message that set off cheers around the world. "Houston Hermes XO be advised, 9, repeat, 9 astronauts aboard. Confirmed by Beck and Lewis. We're coming home. Copy. Copy that Hermes. Outstanding job by all. Advise Watney condition when available and prepare to receive return trajectory telemetry." Chris overrode the hatch controls on the MAV and advised Mark to stay put. The first view of his old friend Mark had was him entering through the hatch at the front of the MAV with a knife, which Beck used to cut away the straps holding Mark into the launch seat. "Just stay put, we will lift you into Hermes and down to the med bay, don't move, got it?" "Got it," Mark grimaced as Dana came in and assisted Chris. Once Watney was cut free they dragged him weightlessly through the hatch, then onto a stretcher, past Lewis, and in a minute were in the med bay, which at the moment was also weightless. As they brought him in, Dana advised over the intercom their progress. "We got him, going to med bay direct. Mark appears to be in a great deal of pain, can't see injury yet but his EVA is covered with HAB canvas and insulting foam on lower left leg. Not a bad emergency cast, Watney. Looks tight. Can you feel your foot?" Dana asked. "Hells yes, it feels like it might catch on fire," he snarled in reply. "Okay, calm down. We're almost there and we will cut all that off and get you sedated." "Won't feel a thing, I promise," Chris said. "Thanks Chris. Thanks for coming back for me. Thanks for waiting for me. I'm sorry, it just hurts pretty bad, you know." "Yeah, I bet, you did a great job with improvising the cast." "Yeah, that hurts too," Mark replied as he closed his eyes and tried to focus on his breathing to relax. He was safe now. Once strapped into the medbay exam table, Dana removed Mark's helmet while Mark just stared at her, and Chris went to work removing the cast Mark had rigged, gently cutting through it with a rotating saw not any different from a cast saw on Earth, except this one had a stronger vacuum line to suck up all dust. When the cast had been split and opened some Mark sighed as the blood flowed unrestricted back into his ankle and foot, then yelped when a deep throbbing pain returned from the same region a moment later. Dana tried to place a respiratory mask over Mark's face, but he was startled, turned his head and looked at her with anger. "Mark, Dana is going to give you some gas to relax and rest while we work. You won't feel a thing and I will wake you up as soon as we're done. You're going to feel better, I promise, trust me," Chris said. Mark relented and Dana put the plastic breathing apparatus over his nose and mouth before turning on the anesthesia mixture and telling him to breathe deep. Throughout all of this the last of KK's message was piped in by Beth, making the scene surreal to both the doctors and the patient. Occasionally he would reply back, forgetting that he was no longer mixed up until he finally went under and Dana both cut off the intercom and advised Beth to let KK know she could stop, with thanks from all. Next Chris cut off the bottom of the EVA suit on the injured leg, did a gentle wipe down, then used an ultrasound to discover a green stick fracture to Mark's tibia, which didn't appear to be separated. It looked as though the door had slammed into it, shattered it with fractures running lengthwise, but it didn't separate into multiple segments. "Okay, we have significant bruising but the peroneal and tibial arteries and veins look to be intact, so that's good. Looking at his foot, it appears the cast was causing some restriction, so the burning sensor. Are you alright, Dana?" He seems angry at me, Chris." "Yeah, I picked up on that too. Worry about that later. I need to clean up and then you measure for a cast. You want to cut his EVA clear until then. They cost around $400K, so it will be the most money you've spent since you bought your house." Chris smiled, then keyed his microphone. "Commanders, we are going to need gravity in the med bay. Can you start rotation?" "Starting now." "What's his status, Dr. Beck?" he heard Mindy reply. "Green stick fracture, sedated now, can't start med drip or cast prep without gravity. As ortho injuries go, we got lucky. No arterial damage shown but has significant bruising. It must have hurt like hell to get to the MAV, and the launch is the thing of nightmares. BP, respiration and heart rate all elevated but returning to normal. We will have full rundown once we get a cast on the leg and he is cleaned up. Dana will be working the cast, she has more ortho than I, and I will run a chemistry 7, calcium and pain drip. Right now, he's knocked out on general anesthesia. You've seen my house, Chris." "I didn't spend that much," Dana replied to his previous comment once Dr. Beck finished briefing the XO. She had already begun cutting the suit from Watney, starting with the chest so she could place the various monitoring patches that would give a better view of his status than the patches he wore under his EA did. Once done, they switched positions and Dana took over the work on his injury while Chris worked on everything else. In a matter of moments their jobs became easier as centrifugal gravity came into play from the ship spinning up. About the time Dr. Beck was removing the last of the EVA, the 3D medical printer was beginning to manufacture cast Dana had measured for, and within a half hour of his arrival, Mark was as patched up as the doctors could make him. Chris stayed with Mark while Dana went to the bridge to report his condition. Her tears started before she got there. "What's wrong?" Missy asked when she saw her physician friend's condition. He hates me. He hates us." Dana broke down. "What? No, he doesn't," Mark Rick started to say while Alex interrupted. "Mark doesn't hate anyone." "No, that's just not Mark," Beth added. "I think he thinks we left him on Mars. On purpose." Dana gasped. Although she no longer had romantic feelings for Mark, him thinking that of her was crushing to her soul. She considered Mark to be her best friend, even more than Chris. "I'm sure he's just in pain," Mindy said, trying to comfort Dana. I think Dr. Abernathy is right," Beth said. "Why would you think that?" Anna asked. "In his first message from the MAV he said you fired up the mains, not that they fired up themselves. He thinks you left him on Mars. Because from his perspective,